Just 1 second, Mayor. We good? All right, Mayor, you can start in 3, 2, 1.
All right, we'll call to order the City Council regular meeting agenda for Monday, October 14th, 2024 at 6:35 p.m. If all of you would please rise and join us as we're led in an invocation by Mayor Pro Tem Carbone, followed by the pledges by Councilmember Byram.
Thank you, Mayor. If y'all would bow with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for another great day here in Pearland. Be with all of us as we conduct the business of the city. Be with the first responders that are here in the city, serving across the nation, around the world. And give us the discernment to make the right decisions and get everybody home safely to their families tonight. In your name we pray. Amen.
All right, thank you for that, and thank you, each and every one of you, for coming out tonight. We do have a jam-packed crowd, and I appreciate each one of you and for what you're doing and what you're being here and your reasons for being out here tonight. So with that, we're going to move forward in our agenda. Roll call and certification of quorum. Madam Secretary, I'll certify we have a quorum present, as all members are present with the exception of Member Patel, who I understand will not be here tonight, so he will be absent from the chamber the rest of the evening. With that, we do have citizens' comments. I think we have several. We're going to call on them in the order in which they were turned in to us. There's several under general comments that we'll go to now, and I believe we have one that requested to speak under public hearing. So with that, Mayor Pro Tem, if you'll introduce them.
All right, thank you, Mayor. First up is Robert Jeter. Thank you for being here. If you'd give us your name and address for the purpose of the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I already gave the address on the form. Do I give it here as well?
Yes, sir, for the record.
7115 Little Willow Drive, Pasadena, Texas.
Thank you.
Am I good? Good evening, Council. I'm actually a resident of the nearby city of Pasadena. However, I have done a lot of business in this beautiful city, and for the most part, like the city of Pearland. I want to say positive things about this amazing city, but unfortunately, that is not why I'm here today. I have here a letter from the Pearland Police Department regarding a complaint I filed against an officer of the Pearland Police Department on September 17th. I will read the conclusion while excluding the officer's name. As your complaint did not involve actions as a Pearland police officer or occur within our jurisdiction, this matter will be administratively closed. What this stems from is one of your officers, who is also an elected official, set up a group chat on August 20th between myself and another elected official that your officer facilitated and encouraged to make highly offensive comments, including but not limited to degrading my deceased mother, falsely claiming my father's an alcoholic, inventing allegations of me being a sex offender, making inappropriate references to ongoing litigation in Pasadena Municipal Court, and lots of appalling references to skin color and race. Pasadena has a good social media policy regarding officer conduct on and off duty. I do apologize if council is just now finding out about this, but a copy of this complaint was sent to the officer's immediate supervisor as well as your police chief. If I had been employing someone of such reprehensible character in a position of senior leadership, I would want to know about it. I stand by my humble request for a written apology from the city of Pearland for employing an individual whose conduct is entirely unbecoming of an officer serving as a police captain over the support division, even if this behavior falls out of criminal jurisdiction. Thank you for the time, council.
Thank you for those comments. Next up, Mr. Jeffrey Cotton. Thank you. Same thing if you give us your name and address for the purpose of the record.
Yes, my name is Jeffrey Cotton. I live at 16423 Hickory Knoll in Houston. Good evening. My name is Jeff Cotton, and I'm the president of Local 4964, Pearland Professional Firefighters Association. I'd like to start by thanking our elected officials for their longstanding commitment to supporting Pearland firefighters over the years. It is because of this demonstrated priority placed on public safety that I'm here to speak tonight to address Council's valid concerns on behalf of Pearland firefighters. During the regular council meeting on September 23rd, 2024, a discussion took place regarding the policy changes announced on September 18th, changing the city's FLSA practices. Policy change specifically alters how vacation, comp time, and other time off are calculated for FLSA overtime. Councilwoman Cade raised an important question about whether peer cities have similar policies, especially among the top 10 safe cities. We believe that to attract and retain the best talent, we need to offer more comprehensive or competitive benefits than our peers. Contrary to what was suggested, we do not agree that this policy change is common practice across other departments. In fact, Kurt Verone, who's considered an expert in FLSA practices, stated in the training attended by HR and fire department personnel in Arizona last week that a 14-day pay cycle with all benefit time counted toward hours worked is the cleanest way to handle FLSA and payroll. Councilwoman Cade also inquired about the impact of this change on staffing for events. While this is a nuanced issue, the reality is that it will complicate our ability to backfill positions, particularly when relying on overtime. Just recently, during the weekend of October 5th and 6th, several EMS transport units were shut down due to staffing shortages. Additionally, medical standby personnel for the festival at Independence Park were not staffed, leading to the department to reduce fire protection in order to cover this event. Most critically, I want to address Councilwoman Cade's question about morale. I can confirm that this change has indeed had a detrimental effect on morale among our firefighters. The abrupt alteration in how our pay is calculated and significant changes to certification pay has altered our financial outlook and influenced critical decisions for our families. Furthermore, the inherent discouragement of using vacation and comp time risks creating unnecessary fatigue. Councilman Byram asked whether this change would affect hiring new firefighters. Competing departments without such restrictive policies will continue to attract candidates away from us. We believe that this will reduce retention as well. When qualified members can find better compensation elsewhere for the same work, it becomes increasingly difficult to keep our top talent. While this only addressed a few council members' specific concerns, I would like to express again my gratitude to all of our elected officials for their concern and continued demonstrated support of Pearland firefighters. As we look ahead to the strategic planning sessions next year, I sincerely hope that Pearland Professional Firefighters Association will be included as advocates for our firefighters. It's essential that we have a voice in these discussions to ensure our concerns are heard and addressed. Thank you.
All right, thank you for those comments. Next up, Mr. Jimmy Davis. Just in case you forgot, name and address for the purpose of the record.
Jimmy Davis, 5004 Combsmill Street, Pearland. Council, I watched the budget adoption meeting and was shocked to learn that the city of Pearland, whom our city manager said pays overtime in accordance with state and federal law, confirmed the city has been paying vacation, sick pay, and other time off as overtime. He confirmed that is not the standard used by peer cities, which tells me Pearland's known for years they have been overpaying people for time not worked. There's a letter from the police and fire department about it, which apparently is why it came to public light. I'd like to see the letter. I was disappointed that the city's answer was, let's take all that excess overtime that the taxpayers have been defrauded of and instead roll it into their base salaries. Clearly, the city manager's primary concern is getting the most out of the taxpayers for his employees. This has damaged trust. He said it was discovered this year, but I think I've heard this has been going on for decades. And I believe our city manager has risen up through the ranks. So he certainly benefited from this, because my understanding is it's everyone that's enjoying this. The FLSA, which governs overtime pay, defines hours worked as, and I quote, all time an employee must be on duty or on the employer's premises or at any other prescribed place of work from the beginning of the first principal activity of the workday to the end of the last principal work activity of the workday. It is clear there is no ambiguity or gray area. Pearland talks a lot about transparency, but this is another example of the lack of it. Pearland City Management has for years told the public that they didn't have enough people to cover all the shifts needed, and that was why they had to pay so much overtime. I've sat in here in many of the meetings. I've heard y'all ask why. They told us, they told y'all the solution was hire more people, and y'all approved it on a false premise. City management knew that what they were saying would get more tax dollars from the residents. Every new employee that was hired, suddenly all their vacation and PTO time was automatically more overtime, and they knew it. From my vantage point as a taxpayer, this almost looks like fraud, and I don't know if there's a degree of criminality. I understand it's been going on apparently a long time, so I don't know there's much you can do from that. Probably statute of limitations ran out. I do think the right thing would be is look at how much was overpaid, return it to the taxpayers, amend your budget. All the people in enterprise fund, water and sewer, that was getting overtime to sit at home on vacation, maybe instead of a 7% water rate, maybe it would have only been 5%. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Next up, Mr. Adam Carroll. You give us your name and address, and I see you're with PPOA, so you can have 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Adam Carroll, 12511 Britt, 77581. I am president of the Pearland Police Officer Association. I'm here representing the folks of that organization. So we are here because of the overtime policy change. Obviously, employees are not happy with that, as proof of the room. I agree with Jeff. It did affect morale. Again, look around the room. Will events get covered? I agree with Chief Spires. Yes, they're going to get covered, but there's a difference between people volunteering to come in and work events versus being forced to come in and work events. Just something to let that sink in a little bit, because they will get covered, but how they get covered is there's something to that. So we're here to ask council to give the city manager's office a directive or some direction to exclude the comp time from the policy change. We think that would be a reasonable solution, reasonable compromise. Employees view the comp time as time that they've earned versus time that was given to them, like vacation. I know there's an argument about that, but I'm telling you, this is how the employees feel, and I think that should be considered. There is potential for cost savings and lower labor costs, and still being able to award or reward employees for working extended hours. Over time, the chances are employees would earn and burn comp time more freely than they would just instead of getting paid as overtime money. There's certainly an increased flexibility. If you work a traditional 9-to-5 schedule with no threat of ever being called out, it's really hard to grasp the challenges that those of us that do that face. Perfect example, I'll use a couple. A police officer that's a crash reconstructionist that gets called out at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday because there was a fatality crash. They're there working that on straight time if they took their kid, took a half a day off, take their kid to a doctor's appointment. So now they're out there on straight time. Same thing for somebody that's in the street department. They took a half a day off on Monday, take a kid to a doctor's appointment, and now it's 2 o'clock in the morning and a storm's blown through. They've got to go fix the traffic light or put out stop signs. They're now out there on straight time. I think it's a reasonable compromise to allow the exclusion of comp time from that, because that employee then has the option to go back and say, hey, I don't want to take this half day for vacation, let me burn comp, and they're probably going to earn the comp right back instead of the money. Give them the flexibility, give them the choice. That's what we're asking. Public safety is a top priority. I'd be willing to bet everybody up in front of us now has said that. the folks that sat in those seats before that, or before y'all said that. I'm quite sure people that come after you will say that. My question to you is, what does that mean to you? It's easy to say, but what does it mean? How do you show that? What does it look like to you? A Facebook post, a bumper sticker? I'm just asking you to look deep into yourself and do some self-reflection. What does it mean that public safety is a top priority? You know, show people. So bottom line, we believe that excluding comp time from the policy change will serve as a valuable compromise, balancing the city's need to reduce overtime costs and the employees' need for flexibility with time usage. Giving the employees this flexibility would significantly restore the employee morale and make them feel like they have a voice within the city that they work for. If nothing changes, I guess that'll speak volumes to us. The Pearland way for me would be Pearland leading the way, not chasing to be average and just being average. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you for those comments, Adam. Next up, Mr. Leo Walker. You get to follow that one. If you give us your name and address for the purpose of the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you for being here. While you're headed up, I apologize to the Firefighter Association for not getting the extra 2 minutes, but you were much more concise than Adam was, so thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leo Walker, 2911 Ham Road here in Pearland. And it is a month before Veterans Day, roughly speaking, so this is my annual sojourn to this esteemed body to invite everyone here, Mr. Mayor, council members, members of the city staff, anyone who's streaming at home or listening, to come out to our Pearland Veterans Day Walk. November 9th, Saturday morning, over at the Pearland Rec Center. It's a great way to honor and show the veterans in our community that we remember and recognize and thank them for their service. It's a serious thing that we're doing, but it's a really fun, family-oriented day. We hope folks will come out and join us. We've gotten great support from the community over the last 11 years from businesses that have sponsored us. We will have Veterans Day t-shirts available from Angie Infante with graphic icons again. She always comes up with great designs. The walk is a 4K walk. If you can't stick around for the walk, just come for the ceremony. It's inside. I know it's November. The weather's unpredictable, but we'll be inside the hall for the ceremony, and then the brave folks who want to walk can come outside with us, and we'll do the 4K walk. All of the money we raise is going to stay here locally. It goes to local nonprofits that are helping veterans with post-traumatic stress and other similar challenges. Organizations that you likely know in the area: Camp Hope, Combat Marine Outdoors, the Pearland Neighborhood Center, which does a lot of good for many, including many veterans in the community. And those of you who are walkers and choose to register, when you get your walker's bib, hang on to the number. Anytime that day or in the next week, you can bring it over to Rob Way's Tap Room and exchange it for a bar chip. If you don't know what a bar chip is good for, ask any veteran seated near you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for those comments. That's all we had for general comments, Mayor.
All right. Thank you for that. And with that, we'll move on. We do have one that signed up for the public hearing, so we will bring that citizen up at that moment in time. Are there any items? Do we have any items to be pulled from the consent agenda? I hadn't had any turned over to me. Okay, with that, Mr. Koza, if you would present consent agenda items A through V. please.
Certainly, Mayor. Consideration and possible action consent agenda items A through V. So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Before we move forward in voting on that, I asked the city manager to just encapsulate, if you will, the reason for consent agenda, as well as a lot of this is procurement. Explain some of our procurement procedures.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So the consent agenda is for items that are budgeted, planned, or routine items that require little or no deliberation. And then we have a value limitation on that of less than $500,000 in value. The consent agenda approves those all in one motion. And then I know a lot of them on here on the procurement side are goods and services procured through cooperative purchasing agreements, and just want to reiterate that those are publicly bid and meet all state and city procurement statutes and requirements. Because those are being bid by these co-ops, they have larger quantities they can bid out. So in theory, we would typically see better pricing, or as good a pricing as we could get through the cooperative. The cooperatives also allow us to reduce our administrative burden on our purchasing staff and our departmental staff for our procurement efforts, meaning that we can operate with a much leaner staff by taking advantage of these cooperative purchasing arrangements. If we did not have those available to us for a lot of our goods and services, we would need many more folks in our purchasing group to administer all the requests for proposals and invitation for bids. So. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you for that. With that, Madam Secretary, we call for the vote.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavarria?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tooman?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
The motion passes 6-0.
All right, with that, we'll move to public hearing number 1. If we would, who's leading off? Vance, are you doing the
I'm going to kick things off and then hand it to
So,
Vance.
so if you would, if we could have somebody read into the record the reason for the public hearing and then move right into the staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Cole. So the reason for this public hearing is a request by the City of Pearland applicant for approval of a proposed amendments to Chapter 4, Article 2, Division 3, Tree Mitigation of the Unified Development Code, Ordinance Number 2000T, in accordance with Section 1141 of the Unified Development Code.
Thank you, Vance. So, Mayor and Council, good evening. After many discussions on modifications to the tree ordinance with both the Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission, tonight we're going to present those proposed changes we've discussed in the past. There were basically 6 modifications being considered. 5 of those we had general consensus on those with both the Council and Planning and Zoning, with the remaining modification regarding a cap to the tree mitigation fee still unresolved. So this amendment was intended to be an initial modification to the tree ordinance with a more comprehensive look taken during the Unified Development Code update that we just are kicking off. However, and additionally tonight, we do have an alternative proposal we want to walk through, as well as what's already been presented to Council and P&Z. This alternative proposal, we believe, is much simpler, more transparent, and has less of an impact on heavily treed properties, which we think is, ultimately how the tree mitigation ordinance should work. So, I think if there's some consensus tonight, we really think that this is maybe the final look at this, that we don't have to go through that with the UDC rewrite if there's some consensus around this more simpler and transparent option here. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to our Director of Community Development, Vance Wiley, to walk us through the history of the ordinance, the proposed amendments that have previously been discussed with Council and Planning and Zoning, plus this newer alternative for consideration. So all yours, Vance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Epperson. So wanted to start with just a little bit about the Tree Trust, some of its eligible expenses and the accomplishments over the years, and just some metrics. So the trust was established to encourage education and outreach, tree giveaway programs, property purchases, tree plantings, maintenance, inventory, and management. So since 2016, the program has given away over 8,000 trees, planted over 6,000 trees, had over 2,000 participants in our Arbor Day art contest, which is going on right now, The Urban Forestry Drone and Technology Program has saved developers over $230,000. The program has contributed $1.4 million to right-of-way tree maintenance. We've committed $75,000 to Yardwise Demonstration Garden, which is a partnership with Keep Pearland Beautiful. And then following Hurricane Beryl, $40,000 in tree trust funds were moved over to assist with cleanup. And here are just some metrics to give some perspective to the impact the program has had when it comes to development and projects. So since the program's implementation in 1997, the following are projects that could have been, or some information about the permits we've done in that time period. So since 1997, we've permitted over $9 billion in development. We've collected over $236 million in fees, and there's been over 150,000 permits issued. Within that 150,000, 34,000 of those were projects that could have required tree mitigation. Out of that 34,000, 30 have paid into the fund. For reference, that's 0.09%. Out of that $236 million in development fees collected, 2.5 of that has been for the Tree Trust Fund, or 0.1%. So here's some of the amendments that we've covered so far to date. Hopefully these look familiar. Number one is to raise the tree mitigation fee from $200 to $300 an inch, reflecting current planning costs with inflation. Again, that fee has not changed since 1997. Number two is to authorize the urban forester to waive fees for trees that are diseased, dead, or pose an imminent danger to ensure fairness. Number three, increase allowable credits from 25% to 100% for upsized landscaping trees, providing developers greater flexibility. Number four, incentivize larger tree planting with a new credit schedule to encourage the planting of more mature trees. Number five, allow trees planted in residential developments to count towards mitigation, reducing the reliance on the mitigation fees while supporting the city's overall canopy goals. And number six, this is where we saw some dialogue amongst planning and zoning, is establish a tree mitigation cap. A couple of options that have been presented are option A, fees not to exceed 95% of the site's market value per the appraisal district, and then option B, fees will not exceed 10% of the development's valuation. So just a little bit more from planning and zoning's recommendation. That night we saw multiple amendments tabled, some failed, and in the end, the commission ended up kind of summarizing it all together and allowing city council to digest them. So options A and B are what staff have put together. Option C was tabled with the lower of either, with the fee not to exceed 20% of the site's value, or B, or for the fee not to exceed 2% of the development's valuation. Option D, establish a tree mitigation cap, the lower of either, and it's 95% and 10% as staff had originally put together. So now to that alternative that Trent had mentioned, the inch for inch proposal. So we could protect trees 12 inches and greater in diameter of the protected species. We would introduce no credit schedule, no multiplier, and no cap. And then mitigation calculation. So just in a quick example here, if someone cut down 100 inches of trees, protected trees, they would require 100 inches in mitigation. So kind of a step towards the 1-for-1, if you will. We would encourage moving the cap to moving the inch for inch fee to $300 an inch, just in line with planning costs. And again, that fee is from 1997, it's pretty outdated. Maintain minimum planting size of 2 inches. Then we would provide inch for inch credits for plantings that are 2 inches on site, and then provide inch for inch preservation. So if you saved a 12-inch tree, you'd get 12 inches of credit on site. And then also we did advocate for keeping the allowance of given the urban forestry some jurisdiction when it comes to sick or diseased trees. And then just simply at the bottom there, some of the benefits. This is a much simpler program than we currently have. It's much more transparent, and it's much more user friendly. So I believe the only item here I'll call out is staff's recommendation there at the bottom. So through the dialogue and looking at some of the metrics of the projects that have paid into the Tree Trust Fund, we saw an average of about 8% when it comes to looking at the project's developed valuation. And with that, staff ended up coming up with a recommendation of 5%. And just wanted to formalize that for y'all. If we did go that direction, staff would advocate for the 5% mark based off the development's valuation. So here's a real world example, just wanted to walk through. Under our current tree ordinance, this site just up the road here off Pearland Parkway, south of the creek and north of Heaton, with the multipliers and everything, is required 33,621 replacement inches. At $200 an inch, that comes to $724,000. This particular project is getting $141,000 in credits through preservation or planting, bringing their actual fee due real world today to $582,981. For example, if we did move the fee to $300 an inch and didn't change anything, they would still require us at 3,621 replacement inches. At 300 an inch is just under 1.1 million. Once you take into consideration the $300 an inch at the and change that for the amount of preservation and planting they're doing, they'd get $211,000 in credits, bringing their due fee to $874,471. If we did go the direction with the proposed development cap, based off the valuation at 5%, this project is estimated to be around $8 million. With a 5% cap, their fee would go to $400,000. So you can see from our current schedule of $200 an inch, or if we did go to $300 an inch, some significant savings there. For this example, we also did want to run the inch for inch opportunity by you all. So inch for inch, this project is removing 1,759 inches of trees. They're preserving 706, bringing their mitigation total to 1,053 inches at $300 an inch. And then just highlighted above that 400,000. So you can see the inch for inch at this and $300 is lower than even the cap would have been. So again, just to go over the amendments as proposed, 1 through 5, there's been very little dialogue about. I think those have been accepted, and we've had consensus on those if we were to go this direction and keep kind of the format of our existing mitigation calculation. Number 6, here you can see A and B, and then staff's recommendation of 5%. And then just to summarize the inch for inch concept, if we were to go that direction, we would go ahead and staff would recommend raising the fee from $200 to $300 an inch. We would keep the authorizing the urban forestry language in there so that they can remove diseased or dead trees that pose an imminent danger. And then just a little bit more on the inch for inch mitigation. So this could apply, you could change this number if you desired. It would, for protected trees 12 inches or greater in diameter, it would require mitigation. There would be no credit schedule created, no multiplier, and no cap is what staff is recommending. And then just a little bit here, so we would provide inch for inch credit for plantings that meet the existing minimum requirement of 2 inches. And then we would provide inch for inch credit for on-site preservation of protected species 6 inches in diameter or larger. And that's concurrent with our existing language now. So to get credit for something now for preservation, it has to be 6 inches already. With that, Mayor Cole, I'll bounce it back to you.
All right. With that, this is a public hearing, so we're going to open it up to the public to address council. It's not really a for or against, but it's a public hearing to take input. We do have one that signed up to speak, and we'll call on Ms. Lisa Deese first. I see Ms. Lisa in the back, so if you can make your way to the podium, give us your name and address, and you'll see up on the clock we have 3 minutes for you to address council. And welcome tonight.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. My name is Lisa Deese. My address is 2715 Pebble Creek Drive, 77581. I am here for the reasons of the trees, and I'm also here because I'm a realtor of 25 years in our area, and I have had several clients who have come in and said that they wanted to do business with us, but they would not work with the city of Pearland because of the trees. It looks like this tree ordinance is out of control. And I know the real estate agents in our area. I spoke with Christy Buck today, and she's had many problems. And I think we need to do something about it. We need to clean up our image. The people in Pearland, I think, have a wonderful image. I think we've done a great job in this city. I remember sitting with Vic Copinger in his bank and discussing what we could do to make things better in our community. And one of the things that we did do was Stella Roberts, Susan Elam, Dolores Fenwick, and myself established a nonprofit called Trees for Pearland that has since been dissolved into the city and into the planning and zoning. I feel like there are too many chiefs and not enough Indians. We really need to stop penalizing people for who want to come and develop here. We want to also have common sense, and we want to have a good reputation. We should have bait. I'm a fisher lady. We should have bait for people to come and do development here. And as many developers, the mayor, the city council members that are developers here, I'm sure there are times that they roll their eyes and say, how did we get in this situation? So I am hoping there's something that we can do. I almost feel like it shouldn't all be under the hat of planning and zoning. I would be more than happy to volunteer, guys, to do anything you need me to help you do. And I appreciate this time, and I hope that these comments fall hard on your shoulders, because we are losing business in this community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. Still open. Second call for anyone who would like to offer testimony. That's right. We did receive one from Mr. Motometti. Sorry, it came in late. You know the drill. Name and address for the record, and you have your 3 minutes up on the clock. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Nick Motometti. My mailing address is 2323 Clear Lake City Boulevard, Houston, Texas 77062. I want to start by thanking Vance and Martin for their hard work on this issue. I know they put a lot of time into this, and I really appreciate everything they've done. As the owner of several dozen tracks in the city of Pearland, I strongly support changes to the tree amendment. I think the way it is currently written, unfortunately, can put the burden on landowners and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in some instances. There are two specific comments I wanted to make about the tree ordinance. First, I think what the city needs to do is look at finding a way to preserve quality trees. And by that I mean, in the Massey Oaks development, the developer worked with the city to preserve those oak trees along the access drive. And I think the way the code is written today, there is no language in the code that incentivizes a developer to craft their site plan in a way that preserves those trees. And so what I would encourage City Council to think about is offering a 3, 4, 5 times multiplier for every quality tree that's kept in exchange for being able to cut down less quality trees. And I think that leads to a better quality product, not just for the developer, but also for the city. Because the truth is, if we pay a $300 fee to the city, it will take decades for those trees to grow into the 24, 36-inch, 48-inch oak trees that are on some of our quality properties. So I really think the city would be better served by adding incentives for developers to craft their site plans in a way that preserves good trees instead of focusing on all the bad trees as well. The other thing I would say is I think a cap is a good idea. We do development in many cities across the state, and many cities have caps or other mechanisms similar to caps, including our neighbor, City of Alvin has a cap of $2,500 per acre or $100,000 across the entire development. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I think what Vance and Martin proposed makes sense to tie it to valuation. Obviously, larger projects should pay more in fees than smaller projects. So I think Vance and Martin are on the right track, and I fully support what they've done. And I hope the City Council will make those changes tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you for that. And I'll make third and final call, those wishing to address this public hearing to offer up public testimony. Seeing no one move in that direction, we'll now turn it over to City Council for your thoughts, questions, comments. Before we do, I'm going to weigh in real quick. If we make changes, I think the change should just be inch for inch. Makes it simple. If you got a 24-inch tree and you remove a 24-inch tree, you replace it with 24 inches. Not 48. That's the penalty. That's the part that people are talking to. If it's 36, you're going to now 3 times, or you're over 100 inches. The goal is to increase the canopy. You've got one 24-inch tree today. As Nick pointed out, if I replace that with 6 4-inch trees or 4 6-inch trees, I'm not going to have the same canopy today, but over time, I'm going to have a larger canopy than I am with the one tree. It does make it simple, and it does make it easier to calculate. So looking at it, that would be something I would be looking at as a simple way to do this. Now, the goal for the tree preservation ordinance was to increase the canopy in our community. It was to preserve, certain trees. I don't know that it met the goal of preservation, but yet coming back in, people clearly, cleared tracks trees came down, trees came back up. And I'm also in favor of some of that mitigation being in their landscaping plan, which is required anyway. I like some of the things that staff put in here, incentivizing credits. If you're putting up homes, you're putting up whatever, 2 per home, and you've got 100 homes, what does that account for? And that's going to grow over time as well as part of your mitigation. So I like where staff is headed with this. Don't know that it's completely where it needs to be. I will say to Ms. Dees, we've had a lot of people still come here and open business and do a lot of business here, even with the tree ordinance and the tree mitigations that we have, a lot. Clearly, when this was written in 1997 versus today, you can see the amount of development that has occurred even under this ordinance. So I think our reputation in the marketplace, if anybody has tried to do business today versus 5 years ago versus 10 years ago, I think you'll find that our reputation in the greater Houston area is way up there, especially getting quality projects through the door. So with that, we'll throw it open to council. Start off.
Yeah, I'll start off. In regards to some of the comments, I appreciate you guys for being here, and I appreciate the comments. A lot of that was led to developers and bringing people to the city. But one thing to think about is we have current businesses that are here, and they've been here for 30 years. And 30 years ago, they planted a tree. And over 30 years, their business has grown. And so now they want to expand after being here and living here and being a business for 20 and 30 years. And to expand, now they have this big tree to deal with. And so it's not all about new. It's not all about development. It's about the citizens and the business owners that have been here and that are wanting to expand. And so I think that's important to point out too, that it's not all about just the new. Secondly, why do we mitigate trees? Why do we need to do that? Everyone loves trees. Why are we tearing down trees? Well, when you build something, depending on where you are, depending whether you're in the floodplain, whether you have to add fill, sometimes our own city requirements require us to tear those trees down. Because if we fill and you fill around the tree, it's going to kill the tree. So it's not about just people coming in and tearing all the trees down. Our own city codes and to build things the way we should will require us to do that. So I wanted to make those points. As far as the proposed plans, I think there's some good things here. There were a couple of different proposed plans. It's my opinion that it's a combination of the things that were proposed. I want to agree with the P&Z that with the 20% and the 2%, the idea that if I go buy a piece of land and it costs me $100,000, that I would possibly have to pay $95,000 in tree mitigation, that just doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't seem like we're doing our citizens justice. I mean, that's mind-blowing to me, honestly. I do like the inch per inch, the sick and diseased trees. I think we're already practicing that. I think making it official is great. One thing I didn't see is the trees that are required by our landscape requirements being credited to that. It wasn't, I don't know if I just missed it, but I know that was clear in our last meeting. And if we're lowering the requirements and we're going to an inch, I would have no problem with going from 200 to the 300 that's proposed. I think that's a great idea. And so that's my ideas on it, or that's my take on it.
Next up, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I like the inch for inch option, and with that 5% cap. And yeah, that's the best solution we've had since what, 97 when this was out here. I mean, this has always been too complex. So I think inch for inch certainly the way to go.
Cheverett.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm in favor of the inch per inch. However, I do have a question regarding the multiplier for credit. So are we suggesting that that multiplier will be 300 versus 200? Is that correct? For credits?
So
I just want to make sure I'm understanding the credits.
So staff's recommending that if we do go to inch for inch, there wouldn't be any credit schedule, meaning if you plant a 4-inch tree, you're getting 4 inches in credit. Trying to make sure I'm understanding the question right. But if you preserve a 6-inch tree, you'd get 6 inches of credit. And then if you planted a 6-inch tree, you'd get 6 inches of credit. So it's inch for inch across the board, both directions.
That's the reason why it makes it more simple. You're not worried about the multipliers here. Mr. Koza?
Thank you, Mayor. Back on September 22nd of 23, the folks here that were on council received an email from Trent Epperson, our city manager, that had a subject of tree mitigation fees since 2018. And going through that email, there was a graph or a chart in there of several different, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 to 12 companies. There was one residence in there that was building a brand new home. And it went through on what the development costs were and the tree mitigation values that were there. And as you go through this, I know Vance, you said through the years it was under 1% as a whole. On this little chart right here, doing the math, Lonza had a $50 million project valuations with fees paid of $555,000, which represented about 1.1. Quick Quack Car Wash had a development of $500,000 with $125,400 fee to be paid. That represents 25%. Floor and Decor had an $8.5 million development with $446,000 being paid in fees. That right there was 5.25%. The school right here next to us, they said their development is $28 million with $212,400, which they came in kind of what you were talking about at 0.76%. There's an Innovation Plaza. Either they didn't have many trees or they negotiated fairly well, because in that they had a $3 million development and they only paid $3,800, which represented 0.126%. Then you go on to Checkers that was on this list, and they had a $300,000 development that came in at $19,400, which represented about 6.4%. Then there was Lake Park Townhomes on here twice. I guess they must have had two different pieces of property that they were building on, because the first one was $605,596, and they paid $32,550, which is about 5.37%. And then their second piece was $779,000, but they only paid $11,800, which is about 1.51. So while when we talk about this overall, yes, it sounds like a small number, it can be fairly large percentage-wise and dollar-wise for each individual development. I've heard it said several times that we've never lost development in this city because of this. I personally know somebody that was given a lot for Christmas present one year. His wife gave him a lot to build a home on. And he got in the middle of this, at that time, current tree mitigation process. And he told his wife, "Thanks for the present, but I'm selling it." And that was exactly his words. He said, "I'm not going through this." And the kind of comical part behind it is the folks that bought it didn't realize we had a tree ordinance and hired a guy with a bulldozer and just went out there and started knocking trees down. And city employee came up and asked if he had a permit, and he said, "I don't need a permit. I know how to run this bulldozer." So he had no idea that we had this tree mitigation. And it was substantial what he ended up paying, because it was a heavily wooded lot. So individually, it can impact business owners it can impact property owners. As I've displayed, it's all over the map from percentages you talked about all the way up to 25%. So it does have impacts, and it's one of those deals that has it stymied development here in Pearland. I've never heard anybody say, yeah, I'm not going to do it, I walked away. But I do know of one homeowner that did walk away because of it. Most of the times, I'm sure the people, if they came in and said, hey, this is way too much, and I can come back and say, can we have a better tree mitigation fee to keep me here? Most people just say that's too much and they walk away. So you don't have record of what we have lost. And I don't know how you would get that. So with that being said, I am for the inch for inch. I think it's fair. One question that I have, you go at Home Depot, Lowe's, and you buy plants. And with that plan, it comes in and says, hey, you should plant these within inches of each other, feet of each other, whatever it is. I currently own a piece of property that back in the 80s, 5 oak trees were put on a small grass area. And had one tree been put there, I would have a beautiful oak tree instead of 5 morphodite trees that have the outer edge growing a lot more than the inner edge. And from my perspective, if you look at the one tree on 35 that is just south of the bank, everybody loves that oak tree. Why? Because it's big, it's beautiful. It's not 5 crammed together because we had a tree ordinance that said you have to have this or you get penalized. So, so with that being said, I am for trees. I am for making it sensible and making it something that businesses, property owners aren't penalized by multipliers and things of that nature. So my question, if we do an inch for inch, we had a vet on North Main that cut down I think it was a 30-inch tree, give or take, and he did not have room. So what happens if you cut down a 20-inch, a 30-inch tree, whatever it might be, and they don't have room for it, but he's willing to plant, or the property owner is willing to plant? Would they be able to say, hey, can I plant the other trees, city parks, city properties, easements, esplanades, whatever area that we could put it in?
So if they didn't have the room on site, the $300 the fee in lieu would still be an option, and then like it exists now, that money would go to the tree trust, and staff would plant those trees or use those funds for allowable expenses. But to your point about what was the diameter? I apologize.
For the vet, it was I think right around 30 inches.
Yeah. So that would just be 30 inches. You would owe 30 inches, and you could do a combination. So say he didn't have room on site to plant 15 2-inch trees, but he had room for 7. Well, then he would just owe us 50% of that, and he could pay that fee in lieu. But it would be $300 an inch.
But would we be open to be able to say, hey, I'd just like to plant the trees, and giving him locations to be able to plant them instead of having to pay a fee?
Currently, no, sir. So that would require a little bit of research on staff as far as how to manage that. But that's the purpose of the fee in lieu is to designate that to the city of Pearland, who manages the trust.
So with that question, this email that we got back September 22nd of 23, the dollar amount that we had in the tree mitigation fund at that time was $1.5 million. How many trees through the years have we planted?
And I didn't want to change the slide where you're speaking. If you don't mind, I'll just go back real quick.
That's fine.
So since 2016, and that was just our current urban forester, that's how long he's been here. We wanted to have good, solid numbers to report on. So since 2016, the Tree Trust program has planted over 6,000 trees. And for reference, the city of Pearland has 36,000 public trees. So of our 36,000 trees, this program has planted 6,000 of them. Roughly 16% of our public trees have been put in the ground by this program.
Okay. So you said we've had 6,000 planted. What's currently in the Tree Trust Fund? Dollar amount?
1.1.
Okay, so
billion.
since September, we've spent $400,000 on something.
And so, yes, sir, every year the Tree Trust puts anywhere from $100,000 or so into the right-of-way maintenance contract that EPW and community development manage together. And then, yes, sir, just various other things. And I mean, part of it's also earmarked for the projects this year. I think we have like $300,000 earmarked for this year. The one example is the Yardwise partnership.
All right, thank you.
And Mayor Cole, if I may, just because I think Member Koza wanted to take a moment and clarify something I'd said previously. So when it comes to these percentages, staff's recommendation of 5% based off valuation is in agreement of what you're saying from that 2018 email. So we looked at that same information, and the average of those is about 8% of the project's valuation, and that's why we were recommending the 5% number. The number here is more to show the number of projects lifetime that have paid into it or been impacted by it.
Yeah, which is fine. But I mean, like I said, I lean more towards the inch for inch. I think it's fair, and it increases your canopy, especially if you're planting trees, because the trees at the vets were planted back in the 70s, so 50 years ago. And the trees that grew in there, they were planted for large animals to have shade.
Yes, sir.
That's why they were put there.
No, and just wanted to state that we're in agreement about the percentages and how you were interpreting that as well.
Okay. Ms. Cade?
Thank you, Mayor. Everybody, several of y'all have said a change in inches. Is that to be more or less strict, the change in inches? You mean like 10 inches, 12 inches? What is that?
No, it's like currently a protected tree is a 12-inch or greater, certain trees, certain hardwoods, XYZ.
Mhm.
And so the mitigation, like right now, if you replace a 12-inch tree and it's 12 for 12. Once you get to 24, it goes double, so it's 24 that you're replacing with 48. You're doing 36, then it goes up to whatever the multiplier is. So what we're talking about inch for inch, if you have a 24-inch tree, you're going to replace it with 24
Just inch
inches
for
of-
inch.
Inch for inch.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if anything, I would like to see the tree ordinance get more strict. I mean, I know that's no surprise to anybody. The tree ordinance is not written to protect businesses or developers. It's written to protect the trees and we have very little green space left, very little developable, I can't say the word, developable, you know what I'm trying to say, space left. And the canopy went up what? I think the agenda packet said went up 1%. And I mean, that's nice, but I cannot believe, frankly, that the place over here on the corner only had to pay what they had to pay. They cut down so many trees. And we have one forested area left, isn't that right?
More than one.
Well, one good one. And I hate to think that we're going to weaken the tree ordinance. I mean, again, like I said, I know that's no surprise to any of y'all, but I just wanted to say it publicly that I think that we need to protect the trees. That's what that policy's for, not to protect businesses or developers. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, obviously this is a challenging issue. You know, part of what I'm thinking about is one of our goals is to lower the tax burden on our community. And in order to do that, we've got to put more value on the ground somehow. And that's going to be through development, and that's going to be through attracting business to our community. So, I mean, we have to take care of this community one way or another, and that requires resources. And if we're going to try to balance a tax rate with the demands of our community, it all comes down to value on the ground. And so I like the idea. I said when the last time we talked about this tree ordinance that it was too complicated and there was too many metrics involved to make it simple. I like the idea of it being simple. Going with the inch for inch makes some sense. but we also, I think we have to keep in consideration that we can't be prohibitive to development in our community. And I get the slide you put up, Vance. I appreciate that data. It helps paint a picture. Obviously, we see development is coming to our community, so it's not just stopping it, but we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what we've missed out on because of it, as Joseph said. So I think it's a multifaceted issue that we've got to consider. And if we're going to put more value on the ground, we need to make it amenable to coming to our community. Vance, I did want to get some clarification on what the actual proposal is, because I think we have about 12 at this point.
I was going to go through exactly that.
Okay.
So hang on one second.
Okay.
Vance, go to, there you go, the summary. So I want to go through one by one on this because,
I would just say, I think there's a general consensus for the inch for inch, so I think we go to the inch for inch proposal.
Yes.
And kind of go through these pieces of it.
So I'm gonna state what I've kind of heard up here, and then I kind of want to go through each one of these and just briefly explain them, so we circle back around as we go through, because after we close the public hearing, we're going to go into a new business item, and it's probably going to require, some type of amendment to put on exactly what we've been talking about.
And I'm glad we're walking through this, because like right here, it says no credit schedule, no multiplier, no cap, but then I hear cap and $300 fee, an inch for inch. So what's the picture?
Right, and that's why I kind of want to walk through this. So I did hear, seemed like consensus for an inch for inch route that we're going. That would be your mitigation. So you're removing 200 inches of trees, you're replacing or mitigating with 200 inches of trees, and however that looks. Some of it can be on site, some of it could be into the fund. I did hear, it seemed like I did hear, if we go inch for inch, that there was consensus to go from 200 to 300. That seemed logical. I mean, fee hasn't changed since '97. I kind of heard that through here. I don't know that it was 100%, but I did hear that. And then I did hear a couple people say that it makes sense on the urban forester waiving trees that are diseased, dead, or pose imminent danger. I mean, that kind of makes sense. I don't know that we want to preserve a tree if it's half dead already, because of just natural causes. So those are a few things that I heard specifically. So I don't know if it would be better to walk through, here's the summary of inch for inch, or if we walk through the others and we go back into, like the cap.
So
having a cap of 5% also kind of made sense.
Yeah.
So
if I can maybe walk through a couple of those as well. So yeah, I did hear consensus on inch for inch. There was a couple of folks that wanted to mention the cap under this as well. I do want to, there's one thing, I think it's in the other one, but we didn't get in here, and that is that residential required trees for residential development, that those would count towards the inch for inch.
that was number 6 on the other.
I think it was 5 on, yes.
Yeah,
And
5 or 6.
so I think we didn't get it on the inch for inch one, but I think 5 here would apply there. And then just wanted to kind of walk through why we recommended no cap on the inch for inch. As we ran those numbers, you saw like the Pearland Parkway heavily wooded example, that the inch for inch was actually less than what you'd see for a 5% cap. So that's why we left that off. But if there's desire to look at a cap, we can look at that as well. But so yeah, I think the kind of the things left to confirm is really just the cap.
Real quick, Laney?
Yeah.
Sorry, Ms. Cade.
I have one more question. It says that the current tree mitigation fee of $200 per inch set by City Council no longer reflects the true cost of replanting. To maintain the original purchasing power in 2024, the fee should be $380.34. What was the logic of recommending increasing the fee just to $300? If it should be $380.34.
I'm going to say something kind of candidly. I've got to put together something that'll pass, and doubling it to $400. Just, I'm not sure if y'all have that appetite. I'm happy to stand corrected, but candidly, Member Cade, I just didn't think there'd be an appetite to raise it that much.
And why 12 inches?
So 12 inches is the existing diameter. Happy to continue. So the state sets that we can protect up to 10 inches. And so happy to move that to 10 inches. I think to some of your comments, that would, honestly, going to an inch per inch change and protecting 12 inches will be, apart from not having a tree ordinance, we will be the absolute friendliest folks with a tree ordinance there is. And so moving it to 10 inches in diameter, protecting 10 inches and larger in line with the state's, what the state allows us to do, staff would be supportive of that as well.
Could we, well, since it should be $380.34, could we go a little higher than $300?
That would be
A motion?
all of this is going to be in an amendment process. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yep. Just to give direction on the cap, I appreciate the calculation. That cap didn't hit on this property. I'd rather have the cap in place at that 5%, just in case there's an outlier out there. And I'm cool at 300 per inch at 12 inches.
On the cap, talking 5%, in these proposals, we've had percentage of value versus percentage of project value. So just want to be clear, which 5% are we talking about?
If you go back a slide, it was a staff recommendation. 5%
Development value, so project value.
Valuation.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on here. So trying to keep straight what we're talking.
And again, it doesn't mean that every project will be 5%. That's the cap. It might be 1%. It might be 0.5%. It might be 2%, but the cap would be 5%. Just, so a larger treed up area is going to have a higher value. So the cap may come into play. Last thoughts on, so I think Ms. Chavarria, when we come out of this, we're going to go to new business item number 1. You're going to be putting that on the table. So we need, and I've tried to look through the actual ordinance, and I think it's waiting for us to insert what we want.
Mayor, one other thing maybe is just a question to pose, and I don't want to extend this a whole lot, but do we, if we get to some consensus tonight on the inch for inch and the other parameters, do we feel like we've tackled this thing for the UDC update, or would we do what we had talked about doing with the UDC update and go through this again? Or I kind of feel like we're getting there.
Yeah, just leave it.
Yeah, with whatever we come up with tonight, I think we're fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think whatever we come up with, that goes into the UDC rewrite as approved by council. I could see a tweak when that comes out down the line, maybe, especially if something's not working right. But we could certainly give clarity to staff, give clarity to anybody that's kind of in limbo right now, looking at this, and that would certainly, do that. And if we've got true consensus amongst council, why not? I think we go ahead and kind of move along.
Where Member Carbone was talking 5% on it, to me, 2% would be fair. I don't know where everybody else stands, but
So maybe on that percent cap, the reason we wound up at the 5% is the recommendation. Like the ones you went through, we looked at an extensive list of those, and on average, the properties, the developments that actually paid into the tree trust fund it averaged about 8%. So we said, let's pull that down a little bit to 5. So that's how we wound up with the 5% recommendation.
And are those where you're in lots that are heavily wooded, or are those lots that are 50-50? What, because when I went through that breakdown there, I couldn't tell you if Lanza's lot was heavily wooded like the example that was up there.
Sure. I mean, they're across the board, because we just looked at the ones that actually paid into the tree trust fund.
Because when you come
and looked at an average.
When you come into a lot where there's more trees that are trees you're going to gauge, that has a bigger impact than this lot right here. I'm going to assume had a bunch of trash trees on it.
Right.
And at 200,000.
So you have one like the car wash that was at 25%, so they'd be down to the 5% cap. And then you do have some that are less than that, and they would be less than that because they're below the cap. And, but on average, across all of the properties that have paid into it, it was at 8%. So we said, let's make it lower than that. Let's set the cap lower than that. So
Because
on average, people will pay that
One-
3% less.
one question I
If they hit
have,
the cap.
and Vance and I have had discussions on this out there where on the Beltway where Ref Chem is. I don't know if it's McConnell or McDonald and Burns. They're looking at developing a lot out there, and their first flush at going through what we have right now is 1.7 million that they would need to pay. Now, it hasn't.
Is
gone
that the
through-
number?
It hadn't gone through the mitigation credits, all that kind of stuff. That was their figure.
Yeah, and I think we reviewed that. And what was the actual figure?
Give me just 1 second, but I appreciate you bringing that example up, and just because it gives me an opportunity to show the customer service that community development already extends to the development community, and that is, so the Burns and McDonald track has an abandoned house on it right now. I mean, it's abandoned, absolutely. Staff looked at that and removed 10 acres because there was a house there and said that's an existing residential and does not qualify for tree mitigation. And so I want to say that what started as 1.7, I think staff had a very favorable interpretation of an existing residential lot on that, removed 10 acres of it, and I believe the number got down to around 300,000. So 364,000, and I believe that's before any type of planting or credits or anything like that.
I guess my issue with that would be is what happens if whoever come up with that wasn't in a very good mood that day and comes back with, it's going to be higher. That sounds very subjective to me. The Unified Development Code means unified, not one day somebody negotiates better than the other. So I've got a little issue with that subjectivity.
I think this takes a lot of that away.
But
Yeah.
it could have easily just been 500,000. So I would say it does, but how do you know that you're on a good day or a bad day and that number's larger or small?
I would say I don't know, because I don't know what all is in the number.
I understand that, but I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
Because it's something that when you get into an opinion on something, opinions change.
And again, I think moving where we're moving, at least sounds like where we're moving.
It's getting, it's getting better.
Bring a lot of that subjectivity out.
I get that. I'm just saying the subjectivity of it is where every time something comes up, it could be different.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Tooman?
So can we go back to the scenario that showed so when we went to the inch for inch, you said that we don't need a cap because the inch for inch was cheaper or less expensive. So where would that percentage be similar? Would it be 4%, 3%? Because it would, in other words, if we're talking about percentage and you were saying that this is less and that's why we don't need a cap, well then where would the cap somewhat equal this so that they're just in line?
So,
percent.
I mean, we can do the math, but 400,000 is at 5% on this particular one, and then with the inch for inch, the fee would be $315,900.
Mr. Tooman, I think it comes down to site specific. Like this particular site specific, it doesn't get to a 5% number.
Right.
But a larger tract, I mean, this tract, Vance told me is about seven acres.
I think it's 8.5.
8.5 acres. So you start getting into a 10 acre, 12 acre.
Yeah.
And it's the same way. And that inch for inch is going to get up above 400,000. That's where something like that would come in. I think a larger tract, real small tract, 2 acre tract, 3 acre tract, you're probably not going to have an issue. But you have a 10 acre, 20 acre or larger, then going inch for inch and a cap still allows some built-in protection. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be the exception, not the rule, that this gets applied anyway. Right. But I think it is a friendlier approach. What I like about the inch for inch is it's simple. You're not having to worry about the multiplier. You're not having to worry about those. You understand it. As a business owner, if you're moving your business, you understand, you got an engineer trying to explain it to you, you're going, why is it doubled at 24? Why is it tripled at, you know, you get lost in that. And so this is simple for most anyone to figure out. Last call for questions.
I think we need. Thank you, Mayor. So I think we need to, are we going to recommend the cap at 5%? I know that Councilmember Koza was at 2%. So
when we put it on, I heard 5. I only heard the 2 here, so we'll have to arm wrestle that one.
Yes, well, I mean, Tony was only 5. I didn't hear anybody else say 5.
That's the only one I heard on the 5. I think you were bringing up the cap on this inch for inch, and where would it apply?
Yeah, which was about 4%. So.
Yeah, it's just going to apply at a larger track.
So you have 5, 4, and 2.
Yeah.
And Mayor Cole, if I may request from staff, so we don't have to measure 6 times, cut 6 times. If we could go, I mean, apologies for asking, but if we could go 1 for 1 for y'all's thoughts on the cap, we'd like to get this right.
Say that again?
If we could hear, I mean, I hate to ask for as far as individuals, but on the cap, I just want to get it right and have consensus.
So right now we have 5, 4, 2. He wants to hear from the other 3 on what percentages.
I'll go to 4. Then you have 2 4s.
I'm okay with 4.
4 is fine.
4. You have a consensus on 4. Sausage making at its best. Isn't it great? All right. But I think we're going to actually get some resolve tonight, which is good. It's been a couple years in the making. So, any other questions? So we're gonna close the public hearing. We're gonna move to new business item. New business item number 1. I think what I'm going to hear is Ms. Chavarria is going to put this on the table. Then we'll need an amendment to and Vance or whoever, the inch for inch scenario. Can we put that up on the screen real quick? It's easier to see. There we go. And if I understand, everybody is okay with this, but we want to add a 4, and that is a cap at 4%.
And we want to call that based on the development value.
And then
anyone that could modify that screen real quick?
And then also the subdivision requirement, does that need to be added?
As part of your mitigation. We're actually modifying that screen, so it'll be a little bit easier. He's back there. It'll be easier just to. Is he correct? Yeah, I'm going to. All right. With that, we're going to close the docketed public hearing, and we're going to move to new business item number 1. Ms. Chavarria, would you place that on the table? And if you want to, you can go ahead and include amendment in that language. That way, we don't have to.
Okay.
It can all be part of the amendment, or all part of the putting it on the table.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action amendment, first reading of ordinance number UDC 2000T-40. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Real quick.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the ordinance to state inch for inch mitigation. The urban forester, there we go. Authorize the urban forester to waive the fees, raise the tree mitigation from 200 per inch to 300 per inch at a cap that will be 4% of the development's valuation. And if you go back a slide, I want to pick up number 5, that allowed trees planted in residential developments to count towards mitigation. So moved.
Second.
And good deal. On this screen right here, number 3, do we need to remove the language no cap in number 3?
I believe he clarified that in that motion when he said it would include a 4% cap. So that slide says no cap, but when it comes
That's the reason why
back,
I'm asking. Okay.
yeah, when it comes back to council for the second reading, the text will be changed to reflect that there's a 4% cap based on property value.
That's what I was going to suggest. On second reading, we can make sure it's a clean version, okay? So we have all that, so we have an amended motion on the table as presented. Is there any questions or comments to that? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we're going to vote on the motion to amend.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavia?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
No.
Member Tooman?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-1.
All right, so we have an amended motion on the table. With that, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Chavia?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
You want to register a vote? Final.
No.
Member Tooman?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-1.
All right, so that completes first reading. We'll have the second reading on the next council agenda on the 28th. We can clean that up and make sure we have a good language there. With that, we will move forward to new business items continued. Number 2, Mayor Pro Tem, would you present that, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration possible action resolution R 2024-214. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Since our last discussion regarding the annexation of Brazoria County Municipal Utility District number 16, we have met with the MUD board president, a second member of the board, and their legal counsel. They had a lot of questions. We worked through those. I believe we've answered the bulk of those at this point, and also had an exchange of information. Last time we did discuss some of the funds they do have on hand, and they have given us a list of a few planned capital type projects and rehabilitation type projects that they had planned for those dollars. They are meeting with their full board later this month to kind of look at the final numbers on some of those. We did not see any issues with the projects that they have in the works, and that the cost of using those dollars for those projects don't really move the needle on the financial analysis that we've completed that supports annexation at this point. So we're going to continue to have that dialogue with them and refine those numbers. But tonight's item in and of itself is directing us, the staff, to prepare a service plan as part of the next steps towards annexation. A service plan is required before annexation. It covers the topics detailed in your packet, such as fire, police, EMS services, solid waste, water, wastewater, roads, maintenance, as well, and parks as well. So we are recommending moving forward with the preparing the annexation service plan for Brazoria County MUD 16. And if we move forward tonight, then the process for moving forward, we will bring it back in November 11th and 18th for the public hearings. For the public hearings, and then we'll bring it back in our 2 meetings in December for actual the ordinance to move forward with the annexation at the end of this year. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Okay, and yeah, I just kind of want to echo that. A vote tonight is not voting to annex. A vote tonight is simply keeping the process moving forward. There's a required service plan that has to be done. There is public notices. There are public hearings. None of that happens without this moving forward. So all that is putting it in motion. We've actually gone through this and got up to the end before and declined to do some annexations before. So I just want to make sure that that's here. I do want to introduce, we have the MUD board president and one of their members and their attorney is here tonight. So we appreciate you guys coming out and participating in this. And if we have any questions of the MUD, obviously they're here tonight to answer any questions. So with that, we'll throw it open to council for any questions, comments, or concerns. Ms. Chavarria?
Thank you, Mayor. So this will be my first time involved in annexation, so I have a question. Will the service plan have, I guess, the dollar amount, like what additional costs it's going to cost the city to annex?
So, no, the service plan is actually just essentially indicating that these are the services we're required by law to provide to them once they're annexed, and they'll be receiving essentially all the same services. I believe that a lot of the numbers that Mr. Hardy's put together in our past presentation and that were sent out in your Thursday packets probably reflected the anticipated cost of that and why we've been able to analyze that it makes sense from a business standpoint at this time. Sure.
I think the chiefs weighed in, an officer or two, those types of things as well. I think some of that's been calculated in. Water, it's actually a reduction of them coming in for their fees, but that's a separate enterprise that pays for itself. Garbage collection, same thing. So, any other questions, comments? Goes.
Yeah, if the president of the HOA would go to the podium for me, please.
Mud District.
Or is it Mud?
Mud District.
Mud president.
Mud District, okay. Thank you for being here this evening. Just out of curiosity, I know there'll be time moving forward if we continue to progress through this process, but first flush, what are your thoughts on annexation, not annexation?
It has its benefits and it's got its disadvantages.
Okay, and in your estimation, does one outweigh the other?
Currently, without knowing what all the parameters are with the service plan, say it's leaning more towards a disadvantage.
Okay. All right, I was curious to just get your first thoughts on it. Thank you.
Good questions, though. And that's part of what this process gets to. It gets to the end, and what does it look like? How does it work? How does it look? All those kind of things. So, any other questions, comments? Seeing no one moving in that direction, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavia?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tooman?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, with that, Mr. Byron, would you take up number 3, please?
Consideration possible action resolution number R2024-197. So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Staff.
Thank you, Mayor. For our water and sewer plant infrastructure, which includes 5 wastewater plants, 12 groundwater plants, our new surface water plant, which started putting water in the system, I believe it was Friday and over the weekend. We'll have our ground opening here very soon. And our 74 lift stations, we require services for electrical and mechanical repairs. So we went out for new bids this year. We had expired the last renewal on our previous contracts and combined the services this time around, as they often go hand in hand. When we get called out for a mechanical situation, there's often an electrical component to that. So having one provider will help streamline that repair work. This was evaluated as best value, and the highest rated bidder, which was also the low cost provider, is Sustenite Support Services. We recommend the estimated amount of $1.1 million, which is in line with our past expenditures, plus adding some there for the surface water treatment plant, and also ensuring that we're doing some specialized preventative maintenance outside of our staff's capabilities. This is a unit supply contract that's based on hourly rates as well as specific markups on parts and supplies. So we actually only pay for the services used. The $1.1 million is just an estimate, but we only will pay for what we actually use. Sustenite is a new vendor to us, but we did reference checks. They came back good. So we do recommend award to Sustenite Support Services in the estimated amount of $1.1 million. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that. Open it up for questions, comments, concerns. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking at the bid tabulation, I see Boyer, I guess E4 I assume that's like evaluator 4 didn't score that one. And I saw in the note it says because they didn't attend the mandatory pre-bid. Why did we have the other 3 waste their time evaluating those? Or what's going on there? I know Boyer's done a lot of work for us in the past, and I haven't heard anything negative from them. So do you have any color you can add to that?
I don't, but I'll see if maybe Joel can. I do know that I noticed that as well, asked the question. They said that they didn't, but I looked at the numbers and, even if they had rated them similarly, I think we'd still have the same recommendation. But I'll see if Joel's got some more color on that.
That's correct, Mr. Epperson. So that entity did not participate in the mandatory pre-bid, and so we disqualified that submission from consideration.
So why'd we waste E, 1, 2, and 3's time scoring it?
Well, we did score the remainder of the participants in the submission.
Right. But I guess when I'm looking at this, we had 4 people score all 3 of them. And I don't know, I was involved in one of those scoring processes, and that's time consuming. So I wonder why we wasted those 3 if we weren't going to consider Boyer to begin with.
I think it's just a part of our evaluation procedure just to continue to move forward with reviewing all the documentation to make sure that there are no other disqualifying factors and that we're able to identify the best value for the city.
All right, thank you.
And also, I think Boyer's been doing a good job. I hope we gave them benefit of the doubt and went ahead and scored them because we know who they are.
I mean, 3 people did, but 1 didn't.
Right.
And so if that 4th one would have scored them, I don't know, they're just, something smells a little funky. My nose is clogged up, so.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tooman?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
No.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavadilla?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-1.
All right, with that, Ms. Cade, could you please present item 4?
Yes, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2024-218, so moved.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is for the purchase of 1 fire tower ladder truck that is designated for use at our future fire station number 7. So fire station number 7 is planned to start design this year. Construction is planned for fiscal year 26 and to be operational in fiscal year 27. The current lead time on fire apparatus is somewhere around 40 months. So we do need to get this on order now so it's prepared and ready and delivered in time for our current schedule for opening that station. This was budgeted for in our FY25 budget, includes the 8-year warranty and 8-year preventative maintenance contract that we've started adding to our newer fire apparatus to help ensure we get the expected operational life out of these very expensive pieces of equipment. We are purchasing this through the Buy Board Purchasing Cooperative to take advantage of the larger volume discounts available through that cooperative. And we do recommend approval to purchase fire tower ladder truck from Siddons Martin in the amount of just over $2.6 million. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, with that, questions, comments, concerns from council? Mayor Pro Tem.
I know this was budgeted for, but remind me how we're financing this. Is this out of cash on hand?
This was out of fund balance in the motor pool. So we had some fund balance left in there that we allocated this budget year.
All right, great. Thank you.
It's all cash.
Yeah. And it's going to roll over for
yes, sir.
More years.
Yeah, I mean, it won't be due until 3 or 4 years when it comes available.
Correct.
All right, with that, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tooman?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavadilla?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
The motion passes 6-0.
All right, with that, there's no other business, new business here. Mayor, council issues for council discussion. There was none.
Hey, Mayor, if I can ask, after the public comment, can I request a future agenda item that we can talk about compensation.
We can. And
I'll follow up with the email.
Follow it up with an email tomorrow. Okay, perfect. That'll be good. With that, we're going to move to executive session under Texas Government Code Section 551.074, deliberations regarding the annual performance evaluation and reappointment of the municipal court judge. Section 551.074, personnel matters regarding city boards and commission appointments and reappointments. Section 551.072 regarding the sale, purchase, lease, or exchange of real property. Council will recess into exec session at 8:10.
50 people to 4.
All right, City Council has returned from executive session at 10:07. With that, we will move to new business continue, consideration and possible action regarding the annual performance evaluation reappointment of municipal court judge. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor, I'd make a motion to appoint Judge Farney to another 4-year term and adjust her salary as discussed in executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Carbone?
Aye.
Member Koza?
Aye.
Member Chavania?
Aye.
Member Byram?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Tuman?
Aye.
The motion passes 6-0.
All right, new business item number 6, we will take no action. So with that, we will move to adjournment at 10:07.